What's the best thrill ride at Disney World? I know the definitive answer, and I'm sure no one will disagree with me. Not like anyone has strong feelings about Disney on the internet. Hi, I'm James from Guide to WDW, and today I'm taking you through the top 7 rides at Disney World that will make you scream. Now, for these rankings, I'll factor in the overall theming and experience, but thrills are the name of the game here. The more intense, the better. Why 7? It makes for an appropriately speedy video, and it forces me to make some pretty tough choices. There are a lot of classic Disney World rides that didn't make the cut, which is why it's weird that we're starting with a ride that I really don't like. But it does belong on this list. Number 7, Mission Space Orange, which has a lot going against it. It replaced Horizons, it's an interactive ride where the button presses don't really matter, and some people find the simulated mission to Mars to be a bit too much, aka it makes them puke.
If needed, space sickness bags are located on the instrument panel.
But the intensity is why it's on this list. It's arguably the most intense ride at Disney World. Mission Space Orange is basically a simple motion simulator placed inside a spinning centrifuge, kind of like the ones that you would see in the commercials for Space Camp, that recreates the G-forces that astronauts feel at liftoff and re-entry. It's only 2.5 Gs, but it's sustained for about 15 to 20 seconds, which feels like approximately forever at 2.5 Gs. The intense movement and intricate claustrophobic ride vehicle make it a convincing simulation. Maybe too convincing. It's so intense that Disney was basically forced to deactivate half the ride. The much gentler green side is still a motion simulator in a centrifuge, but the arm barely moves, and you don't pull any Gs on the green side. This is a divisive ride. Some people really don't like it because it makes them feel sick, me included. But if you want to maximize your thrills at Disney World, consider Mission Space. The lines are short too, so your countdown to launch shouldn't take too long. For the next ride on this list, I wanted to include a good option for a kid's first thrill ride. Disney has a lot of these, but Barnstormer is a snooze if you're older than 6. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is much more fun and has the dark ride scene, but there's another ride that fits the bill even better. Number 6, Slinky Dog Dash, which just hits the perfect balance between approachable for little kids, but also still thrilling for adults. There's a reason why it has one of the longest lines at Disney World, well, other than the fact that Hollywood Studios really needs more attractions. It's a really good coaster for the whole family. It has 2 launches, a respectable top speed of 40 miles per hour, and it's almost as fun to look at as it is to ride. It's not the most intense, but we're still low on this list. So if your kid wants to start their thrill ride career, Slinky Dog Dash is a great entry point. Just try to get a lightning lane if you can. Motion simulators are great for letting you visit distant lands and relive iconic movie moments while packing in the thrills. But there's one motion simulator at Disney World that stands above the rest in terms of intensity and re-rideability. That's Star Tours, which is an amazing remix of classic Star Wars scenes in battles. Star Tours has randomized scenes: Hoth, Death Star, Naboo. The fact that you never know exactly where you're going makes this ride never get old. And Disney has done an amazing job of adding new planets to Star Tours over the years. But that wouldn't mean much on this list if it wasn't a great thrill ride, which, thank the maker, it is. The combination of great 3D visuals and a great motion base makes for an intense ride through the galaxy. It beat out other motion simulators like Millennium Falcon or Flight of Passage, neither of which has as intense feeling of movement, but the motion simulation in Star Tours never feels unpleasant like the Simpsons ride at Universal. It just feels like you're speeding through space on a thrilling adventure, which is why it's number 5 on this list. The number 4 ride is neck and neck with Mission Space as the most intense attraction at Disney World. It's almost as thrilling as subscribing to Guide to WDW for more Disney World videos. But back to number 4. It's fast, it's loud, and it rocks. Number 4, Rock'n Roller Coaster. Rock'n Roller Coaster is incredibly thrilling and surprisingly unique at Disney World. Almost 26 years after it debuted, it's still the only Disney coaster in Orlando with an inversion. And it has 2, a loop and a corkscrew. Plus, it has an incredible 0 to 57 mile per hour launch and an iconic soundtrack. I have a soft spot in my heart for Rock'n Roller Coaster. It was the first roller coaster I ever rode with an inversion and with a launch, and it absolutely blew my mind. I mean, my face says it all. But like Aerosmith and like me, it's showing its age. Rock and Roller Coaster opened in 1999 and you can feel it. Compared to Disney and Universal's newer coasters, which are buttery smooth, Rock and Roller Coaster feels really rough. Now, the Aerosmith theming is going away for a new Muppet version of the ride sometime in the not-so-distant future, so we'll see how refreshed the ride feels when Kermit, Fozzie, and Miss Piggy add some Muppet mayhem to this intense ride. The number 3 thrill ride at Disney World is legendary for its mystery, for its speed, and for its broken animatronic. Number 3, Expedition Everest. Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom is kind of the ideal Disney roller coaster. It's an unbeatable fusion of theming and thrills. Your journey up the Forbidden Mountain starts smooth, but the steep incline up the 112-foot hill feels foreboding. This builds anticipation until you reach the peak and the track is broken. Then we're off to the races with a drop that has you banking at 50 miles per hour backwards. One of the best intense moments at Disney World. The rest of this ride is great too, like a bigger, beefier version of Big Thunder Mountain, with steeper drops and faster turns. Yes, the massive Yeti animatronic has been frozen for decades, but that moment is so brief and still gets the point across. Expedition Everest sets the bar really high for a Disney thrill ride. So what could go even higher? It's a ride that uses an unlikely IP to take a classic carnival ride and elevate the experience in every way possible. Pun intended, because we are about to drop into the Twilight Zone. Number 2, Tower of Terror. The ride that made me scared to get into an elevator for a solid year when I was a kid, and also as an adult too. In terms of theming and overall experience, this ride is best on the list. The building, the lobby, the pre-show, the creepily in-character cast members, it all builds a sense of dread that just continues through the perfectly paced first half of the ride. The storytelling and Fifth Dimension scene are otherworldly in the best way. And we haven't even gotten to the thrill ride part of it yet. It's kind of like if halfway through Haunted Mansion, your Doom buggy got launched onto a roller coaster track. The thrill part of Tower Terror is really great, especially once they added the randomized drop profiles, so no two rides feel exactly the same. There's a reason why drop rides have been so popular for so long. It just feels fun to go up and down at really high speeds. Equally scary and exhilarating, especially when you catch air. Tower of Terror is almost 30 years old, and it's still one of the best rides that Disney has ever made, and the number 2 thrill ride on my list. But what ride could beat that? Before we get to number 1, let's go through some honorable mentions that were so close but didn't quite cut it. Test Track. I love it overall, but as a thrill ride, only really the finale is intense. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. You are the wildest ride in the wilderness, but not quite wild enough for this list. Mixing a thrill ride and a dark ride, Tiana's Bayou Adventure would definitely get a spot on this list if it wasn't for the persistent technical issues and breakdowns. Maybe next year. Tron's launch is one of the most thrilling moments at Disney World, but the rest of the ride is just pretty good. Like Test Track, it's uneven as a thrill ride. It came really close to bumping Mission Space off this list because I personally prefer it, but the intensity of the Orange Mission de-res Tron off this list. Space Mountain can feel intense because of the darkness, but the fastest you ever go is only 27 miles per hour, hardly light speed. Now, getting back to the number 1 ride on this list, it's a true spiritual successor to Space Mountain. One that turns the speed, the intensity, and the fun up to 11. Number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Do the Guardians of the Galaxy belong in Epcot? Thematically, that's debatable. But the ride itself is so good that even as a die-hard Epcot fan, I can forgive the shoehorned IP and lovingly welcome our sci-fi overlords. Or Star-Lords. Let's go through the stats. It's one of the longest indoor roller coasters in the world, and at 3.5 minutes long, the experience feels substantial. It's Disney's first backwards launch and features a top speed of 60.3 miles per hour. But the best part is the innovative Omni-Coaster ride vehicle, which means that each car can rotate independently of the coaster train's movement. As someone who is on the record as despising spinning rides, I was really skeptical that this would be nothing more than a plussed-up primeval whirl. But man, the Omni-Coaster vehicle adds so much to the experience. They don't just randomly spin, they rotate with intention, directing your attention to certain props or enhancing the movement of the drop. You're moving forward, backwards, to the side. With the speed and the rotation, it is very thrilling, but it's also just fun. The movement is so smooth that you feel like you're roller skating through space, thanks in part to the retro playlist that feels like a throwback roller rink. The songs are great, all bangers in my book, but September is the best. Even the pre-show is no slouch, with some incredible effects that most people miss as they try to pry open the doors to skip it, which I will never understand. Cosmic Rewind reminds me of why I love going to Disney World. They take all these different ride elements and combine them in a way that you can't really experience anywhere else. That's why it's the best roller coaster and the best thrill ride at Disney World. But I want to know what you think. What's your number one thrill ride at Disney World? And what should my next top 7 list be about? Let me know. This has been James from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.